What's up everybody, Gale here. Today I've got another unboxing for y'all. This time we have Beyblade QuadStrike, the Ambush Achilles and Gambit Dragon dual pack. Now, Beyblade QuadStrike and Quad Drive kind of get a lot of flack for sucking, and that's primarily because they suck. However, with this release, there's one mainly good Beyblade here, and that's Gambit Dragon. Gambit Dragon has two really good parts in Gambit, which is really good for defense and stamina reportedly, and Dragon, one of the only quad drive or quad strike chips, that actually has reasonable slopes in it. As in, it's not going to burst like crazy like every other release for the quad strike and quad drive systems. Now for all the parts. Here we have the left spin layer of Ambush Achilles. Ambush being this attack ring, and Achilles being the core or chip in the middle. Achilles for the longest time has been right spin only, but because in Japan or in Takara they've recently been making it dual spin, as a result, this is now left spin locked, which is honestly quite unfortunate. Next up, we have Aquilon Q. Aquilon's a really dumb name. Not Q. No, Aquilon Dash, because there exists a previous Aquilon. Now, the thing about the Aquilon layer of a series of discs is that they were supposed to be defensive, where all the weight is centralized in the middle, almost none of the weight is centralized on the outside. The biggest downside with this is that these discs are really, really light. Like, I think they're about 23 grams, even though the heaviest of their kind is around 25, 26 grams. So as a result, it's really, really bad. It is all the weight's in the middle, and it's not even heavy enough to compensate for that. Also, something I discovered recently about Aquilon Dash is that the original Aquilon had these tabs on the inside. Let's see if it'll focus right there. That if you use a hypersphere driver, it will get in the way and increase the gap right here, if it'll focus, increase that gap, making it harder to burst a layer. So let's use this as an example. It's really hard to turn that layer into the thing. Aquilon Dash does not have that feature because these tabs make sure to not get in the way of hypersphere drivers. So now it helps a little bit, but not as much as it used to before. So that's possibly an upside for protection's sake, possibly a downside, and that the burst resistance is basically normal, as in not good. Lastly, we have the performance tip and armor. This performance tip right here, it's kind of hard to see because it resembles its original version nothing at all, but this is supposed to be Revolve. It honestly looks like a misshapen Survive more so, but they really couldn't add a free spinning gimmick onto the core part, considering it's all plastic. Alternatively, this, to be honest, this is my first release with the Quad Strike instead of Quad Drive, so these new armor tips are freaking huge. I was not aware of how big they were until I saw them for the first time. I don't know what it's supposed to be. I think there's a list online, but I don't have the list on me right now, so I don't know what it's actually supposed to resemble or what kind of tip it's supposed to be like. Next up, we have the two important parts, Gambit and Dragon. And of course, the least important, I believe this is either the 4-disc, 4-dash, or arrow disc. Doesn't really mean much. It's the least important part. Alternatively, we have Gambit here. It's not a perfect circle, but it is mainly circular with a lot of bulky defensive ridges on the side. If you looked at the bottom, it's somewhat filled in, which means that it's pretty dang heavy and pretty dang defensive. And also, we've got Dragon. At the cost of a really unfortunate paint job, which makes this look really, really bad, it has some of the best slopes in the Quad Drive and Quad Strike eras. Not the best. I think there's one or two that are stronger, but it's still really, really up there. Next up, we have Karma. This is not good. It's supposed to be a reference to the 9-disc and possibly the 12-disc, where it's supposed to have jagged designs that, when in left spin, dig into the opponent. It's not good. It is way too light, and its aggressive design only works on attack types who would rather be using something like over, tapered, or anything like that. And lastly, we have the performance tip and armor, the tip being Zephyr. Really good for stalling, but I think it's heavily outclassed by Iron, which, even though Iron might be rarer or harder to find, it is just leagues better than Zephyr, and I'm not even sure if Zephyr-Q, Zephyr QuadStrike, is as good as the original Zephyr. And lastly, another giant fat armor tip with a really big flat tip. I'm going to be completely honest, I'm looking at the swirly designs on the side, and I can only assume that this is Assault as a tip, which is weird because we already have Assault as a performance tip, but still. And lastly, here are the two beys fully assembled. So yeah, have a good one.